Las Vegas is dying. Tourism down nearly 9%, flights canceled, environmental crimes, sex trafficking, and a water crisis that could end it all. This isn't clickbait. This is November 2025, and the City of Sin is paying for decades of greed. I am Matt from the next Domino, and I break down the stories mainstream media won't fully connect. In the next 15 minutes, you'll see exactly how Las Vegas went from boom to crisis, and why this matters even if you've never been there. If you want unfiltered investigations like this, hit that subscribe button right now. Today we're covering 7 interconnected disasters, a tourism collapse that's gutting workers' livelihoods, price gouging that's driving away loyal visitors, Elon Musk's company racking up 800 environmental violations, a sex trafficking operation running out of a Fremont Street motel, the highest homicide rate in the city's downtown core, and Formula One race that's costing local businesses 40% of their revenue, and a water crisis so severe that Lake Mead is at 31% capacity. Each of these problems feeds into the next, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why Las Vegas might be the clearest example of what happens when profit becomes the only priority. Let's dive in. Let's start with the numbers that should terrify every casino executive in Nevada. Las Vegas visitation is down 8.8% over 9 months in 2025, compared to the same period in 2024. That's not a dip. That's a free fall. And the reason? Nearly 90% of recent survey respondents said the same thing. Las Vegas is too expensive. Listen to what actual tourists are saying. A visitor from Chicago told local media in August, "Everything is high. I just feel like it's going to be a long road. The prices are outrageous. The food is crazy. I'm just very unhappy." This isn't some anonymous online complaint. This is someone standing on the strip telling reporters they wasted their money. Then there's Esther and Tom McElhinney from Cleveland. They vacationed in Las Vegas for 25 years. 25 years of loyalty. And now, they're done. Here's what Esther said. "The food is expensive. Hotels are expensive. You used to be able to play $5 blackjack everywhere, but now everything is high. The allure here is gone. Vegas is really pricing people out." Think about that phrase, pricing people out. This couple built memories in this city for a quarter century, and now they can't afford to come back. That's not just bad business. That's a betrayal of the people who made Las Vegas what it is. And it gets worse. Social media is flooded with horror stories. $33 bagels, $26 bottles of water, $50 per day resort fees on top of your room rate. One person posted, "This trip is good for my brain? Now my brain hurts after I do the math and all the ridiculous fees." But here's where it gets interesting. The Las Vegas Tourism Board tried to fight back with an advertising campaign. It flopped hard. People responded with comments like, "Wow, that ad is horrible. I'll do their Vegas ad for free. No resort or parking fees, cheaper eats and stays." The city spent money on marketing to fix a pricing problem, and all it did was remind people why they're angry. Now let's talk about who's really paying the price for this tourism collapse. Not the casino executives. They're still getting bonuses. It's the workers, the people who serve your food, clean your rooms, and deal your cards. Ray Lugin has worked in food service in Las Vegas for 40 years. 40 years? He's a member of the Culinary Workers Union Local 226, and he says the slowdown is impossible to miss. His brother works as a bellman at a top hotel, and he's reporting significantly reduced traffic. These aren't corporate metrics. These are real people watching their tips shrink and their hours get cut. Gloria Valdez is a 38-year-old single mother who's been a hostess at the D Casino downtown for 15 years. She told reporters something chilling. "I've never seen business this bad, not even during the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic was something that was worldwide, and we had the hope that everything would get better. We're not sure if and when this is going to stop." Let that sink in. She's more scared now than during a global pandemic. Why? Because at least during COVID, there was a clear cause and a path forward now? She doesn't know if her job will exist in 6 months. So who's to blame? Well, that depends on who you ask, and this is where the controversy explodes. Deanna Valles, president of the Culinary Workers Union, has a clear answer. It is a Trump slump. That's what it is, when you have the leader of this country telling the world that they're not welcome here. She points out that 50% of union members are Latino immigrants living in fear about immigration situations, and Canadian tourism, which used to be a torrent, has turned to a drip because of U.S. visa policies and political tensions. Las Vegas Mayor Shelley Berkeley confirmed this in June 2025, telling NBC that Canadian tourists, traditionally the city's largest international market, had declined dramatically. But here's the problem. Economists say the politics explanation, while partially true, doesn't tell the whole story. Jeremy Aguero, an economic analyst, points out that Canadian visitation only makes up 3% to 3.5% of total visitors. You can't lose 9% of your tourism with a 3% market decline unless something else is broken. So what's really happening? Inflation. Record debt levels across the United States. Geopolitical concerns worldwide. And most importantly, the fundamental perception that Las Vegas is no longer a value destination. The politics might be a factor, but the greed is the disease. Let's talk about the single most hated thing in Las Vegas right now, resort fees. Hotels are charging $30 to $50 per night on top of your room rate for amenities you didn't ask for and probably won't use. You book a room for $150 and suddenly it's $200 when you check out. That's not a fee, that's a scam. The Federal Trade Commission stepped in with new rules in May 2025, requiring full disclosure of fees at booking time to prevent bait and switch tactics, but the fees are still there. They just have to tell you about the robbery before they commit it. Even industry insiders are calling this out. Desiree Stokes-Bloom, CEO of EIG Inc., urged resorts in summer 2025 to suspend these fees temporarily to restore tourist interest. Only one property responded, Resorts World. Las Vegas eliminated fees and parking charges. Every other major strip property said no. They'd rather watch the city burn than give up $50 per room per night. Leora Azoulay, president of Incentives by Design, didn't mince words. She called it gouging, pointing out that basic items like coffee or bottled water are alienating visitors. But the casinos aren't listening. Steve Hill, CEO of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, actually told people that the narrative about Vegas being overpriced is inaccurate. He said, and I quote, "Call a travel agent. Call the properties. See what the price of Las Vegas really is, rather than some general headline that, frankly, is not accurate." Steve, people are calling, they're seeing the prices, and they're staying home. The denial from the top is breathtaking. Industry executives insist that holding the line on pricing is necessary for profitability, but what they're really saying is, we'd rather squeeze every dollar out of fewer customers than lower prices and rebuild loyalty. That's short-term thinking that will kill this city. Now let's talk about someone who thinks rules don't apply to him, Elon Musk. His Boring Company is building an underground tunnel system beneath Las Vegas, and in November 2025, they were fined nearly $500,000 by the Clark County Water Reclamation District for dumping drilling fluids into the county sewage system. But that's just the latest violation. State regulators say Boring Company has violated environmental regulations nearly 800 times over 2 years. 800. They started digging without approval. They released untreated water onto city streets. They spilled muck from trucks. And when inspectors told them to stop dumping fluids on August 13, 2025, the company's superintendent allegedly feigned compliance. He disconnected the dumping equipment when inspectors were watching, then reconnected it the second they left. The water district justified the $493,000 fine by citing the egregious nature of the violations, the substantial damage to district infrastructure, and Boring Company's acknowledgement of responsibility. But here's the problem. Boring Company was valued at $7 billion in 2023. A $500,000 fine is 0.007% of their value. That's not a punishment. That's a cost of doing business. Ben Leffel, an assistant public policy professor at UNLV, said exactly this. Research shows fines that don't significantly impact a company's profit margins don't deter violations. So Boring Company will pay the fine, issue a press release about how seriously they take environmental compliance, and keep doing whatever they want. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, which contracts with Boring to operate the tunnel system, initially declined to comment, saying they were still reviewing the documents. Translation: We don't want to admit we're in bed with a company that treats environmental law like a suggestion. CEO Steve Hill and board chair Jim Gibson later defended the project as well-regulated, but when you've racked up 800 violations in 2 years, the word regulated loses all meaning. Now we need to talk about the darkest crisis in Las Vegas, and I want to warn you, this involves crimes against children. According to Metro Police data released in early November 2025, downtown Las Vegas recorded the most homicides in the city in 2025, 14 deaths. But the homicides are just the surface of something much worse. There's a motel on Fremont Street called the U.S. Motel. Police connected three children, who were victimized by adult sex traffickers operating out of this property. One victim was rescued in January 2025, and a 42-year-old man was arrested. 2 months later, police rescued 2 more minors and arrested a 19-year-old. Other crimes at the motel included a shooting that injured a man in the face, 9 overdoses from January to June, and various drug busts. Police held 3 separate meetings with motel management recommending solutions: guest identification logging, 24-hour security, better lighting. Management implemented none of these recommendations. 0. They hired a retired Metro sergeant as a consultant 3 weeks before a city council meeting in November, and he proposed staff overhaul, new surveillance, and private security 3 weeks before the meeting, after years of crimes. Las Vegas City Councilwoman Frances Allen Polensky said what everyone was thinking. This has been a public nuisance for over 2 years. Horrible crimes have taken place here, and you were retained 3 weeks ago to help remediate the problem. The City Council voted unanimously, 7-0, to revoke the motel's business license on November 6, 2025. The property will remain vacant for at least 1 year, and any future operator has to comply with a dozen stringent conditions over 5 years. But here's the bigger context that makes this even more disturbing. Youth homelessness in Clark County increased 34% from 2023 to 2024 statewide. It increased 27%. Nevada has the most extreme shortage of affordable housing in the nation. Only 17 affordable rentals available for every 100 extremely low-income rental households. These trafficked children aren't just victims of individual criminals. They're victims of a system that has failed to provide housing, safety, and support. The Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth held its 9th annual summit in November 2025 and is developing the state's first standalone plan to end youth homelessness in 2026. But plans don't save kids today. And while casinos are charging $50 resort fees and Elon Musk is dumping waste into sewers, children are being trafficked on Fremont Street. Let's talk about Formula One. The Las Vegas Grand Prix is scheduled for November 20th to 22nd, 2025, and it's generating massive revenue, $1.5 billion in economic impact, and $77 million in tax revenue from the 2023 race. Sounds great, right? Not if you're a local resident or small business owner. Jimmy Singh owns Las Vegas Souvenirs and Gifts, and he says his sales drop 30 to 40% during F1 months, sometimes more. He told reporters, "My sales come down, and every year we have to go through struggles, big time." 4 lawsuits have been filed against Clark County by business owners seeking compensation because the race has destroyed their revenue. Lisa Mayo DeRiso represents a group of business owners, and she explained the broader impact. "We're not like New York City, where most people live in the city and can walk to work. Here, we have to drive or take the bus to work. People are spending an extra hour to 3 hours each day just getting to and from work. And F1 is not compensating anyone for those additional hours, childcare expenses, time spent in traffic, or lost productivity." Think about that. You're a working-class person in Las Vegas, and suddenly your commute triples because billionaires want to watch cars go in circles. You're paying for childcare for extra hours, you're losing sleep, and you're not getting compensated. Here's the kicker. Clark County staff spent 17,059 hours on F1 race work, costing the county $4.3 million, but department revenues from F1 were only $3.8 million. The county lost $462,865, and county commissioners approved the race without receiving any compensation from F1 for using 3.8 miles of public roads as their race circuit. They gave away public infrastructure for free, lost money doing it, and stuck residents with the bill. Race organizers say construction was reduced 65% compared to 2023, and much work is done overnight now. Steve Hill from the Tourism Authority said 2025 has really been very smooth and has not been disruptive. But residents and small business owners are still furious. They didn't vote for this. They're being conscripted into supporting an event that benefits major resort properties and international racing interests while they lose income and time. As if all of this wasn't enough, Las Vegas's Harry Reid International Airport is among 40 U.S. airports facing 10% flight reductions by the FAA as of November 2025. The FAA implemented these cuts as a safety precaution during the federal government shutdown, eliminating more than 150 flights daily from Las Vegas. Anthony Curtis, publisher of the Las Vegas Advisor newsletter, said, "Everybody's nervous here." He called the flight reductions just another layer of problems for a city already dealing with reduced visitors, an uncertain economy, and rising prices. When you're already down 9% in tourism, and suddenly 10% of your flights disappear, that's not a crisis. That's a death spiral. And then there's the existential threat no one wants to talk about: water. Lake Mead supplies nearly 90% of Las Vegas's water, and it's at 31% capacity as of late 2025. The water level has dropped 6 feet compared to 2024. Lake Powell has dropped 33 feet year over year. Over 95% of Nevada is experiencing drought conditions ranging from abnormally dry to extreme drought. Nevada leaders gathered at the Southern Nevada Water Summit in August 2025 to discuss conservation and infrastructure strategies, but the reality is simple. You can't sustain a city of 2.2 million people, plus 40 million annual tourists in a desert with a disappearing water supply. This isn't a problem you solve with better marketing or new tunnels. This is physics. Before we wrap this up, I want to know, have you been to Las Vegas recently? Or are you planning to go? Write yes or no in the comments. And if you've been, tell me if you notice these problems. I read every comment, and I want to hear your perspective on whether this city can turn things around. So let's recap what we've covered. Las Vegas is facing a tourism collapse driven by price gouging and political factors. Workers are terrified. Resort fees are alienating loyal customers while industry leaders deny the problem. Elon Musk's company has committed 800 environmental violations with barely a slap on the wrist. Children are being trafficked in downtown motels while homelessness skyrockets. Formula One is enriching billionaires while bankrupting small businesses and costing the county money. Flights are being canceled, and the water that keeps this entire city alive is disappearing. These aren't isolated problems. They're all connected. When you prioritize profit over people, when you price out loyalty, when you ignore regulations, when you sacrifice community for spectacle, when you build in a desert and pretend physics don't apply, eventually the bill comes due. And that bill is being paid right now by workers, by children, by small business owners, by tourists who saved for years to visit a city that no longer wants them unless they're rich. Las Vegas isn't just collapsing because of bad luck. It's collapsing because of choices. Choices made by casino executives who would rather lose customers than lower prices. Choices made by county officials who gave away public roads for free. Choices made by regulators who let billionaires ignore environmental law. Choices made by a society that looked the other way while children were trafficked and workers struggled. If you want to see more investigations that connect the dots, mainstream media won't touch. Click the video on screen right now where I break down other cities facing similar crises. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.